Oklahoma is a fascinating state to explore. Its geographic location puts it in the middle of the Midwest, Southwest, and Southern cultures. And its history as being the relocation area for many large tribes from the South gives it a very unique, if not sad, history. Despite all of this, Oklahoma today only has about 4 million Americans living in it, about half of the single Texas city of Dallas. So why do so few Americans live in Oklahoma today? Hello and welcome to Geography by Geoff. Today we're going to do a deep dive on the state of Oklahoma. The state, of course, has a fascinating history within the United States as being the endpoint for the infamous Trail of Tears. But also, it's a state that only has about 4 million Americans, which is quite low given how close it is to the state of Texas, which has nearly 30 million Americans. And as usual, there's a geographic reason for this. But first, it's college sports season. And if you're anything like me, you know absolutely nothing about college sports conferences, why they matter, or what they even mean. To help us understand it all, Hunter is going to guide us through the wacky geographic world of college sports. And even if you hate sports, it's a fascinating geographic story. You can listen right after this episode by clicking this link, or by checking out the description below. The story of Oklahoma is deeply rooted in the story of the United States, tracing its history back thousands of years to indigenous populations and spanning through European colonization to its eventual statehood. The area that is now Oklahoma was originally home to a variety of Native American tribes, including the Osage, Wichita, Caddo, and many more. But, as what happened with countless tribes before them, the native indigenous peoples of the area would have their lives upended with the arrival of European explorers. The first European contact came in 1541 when Spanish explorer Francisco Vázquez de Coronado ventured into the area. Despite initial Spanish incursions, however, the French would exert the most influence, as they were interested in fur trade and mapped much of the region. The area changed hands several times due to European conflicts and treaties, and it was ultimately acquired by the United States as part of the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. In the years that followed, Oklahoma became a focal point for the forced removal of Native American tribes from their ancestral lands in the southeastern US, a dark chapter known as the Trail of Tears. The government designated Oklahoma as Indian Territory, relocating the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Seminole, and other tribes to the area. This led to a significant alteration in the human geography of the region, as different communities and cultures were forced into cohabitation. Throughout the 1800s, non-indigenous settlers, drawn by the allure of free land and opportunity, increasingly encroached upon the territory that was supposed to be for Native Americans. This culminated in the Oklahoma Land Runs, a series of events where settlers raced to claim parcels of land. The Land Run of April 22, 1889 was the first and largest, involving the opening of the unassigned lands, an area centrally located in modern-day Oklahoma. At high noon on that historic day, an estimated 50,000 people rushed to claim plots from 2 million acres of free land. Within just a few hours, both Oklahoma City and Guthrie had gone from empty land to bustling towns with thousands of residents. Oklahoma City's strategic location near the junction of the Oklahoma River and the Santa Fe Railroad made it an especially attractive site. By the end of the day, Oklahoma City had a population of over 10,000, making it a de facto city almost instantly. This chaotic yet organized method of settlement had both positive and negative implications. On one hand, it resulted in rapid development and immediately established communities. On the other, it led to disputes over land claims and was not without contention, particularly because it further displaced Native American populations who had already been moved to the Indian Territory. Nonetheless, the Land Run of 1889 remains an iconic event that contributed to the shaping of Oklahoma's geography, demographics, and even its identity, with Oklahoma City eventually becoming the state's capital and largest city. As the 1900s approached, the debate over statehood for Oklahoma intensified. The area was a patchwork of Native American territories and lands settled by non-indigenous people, complicating the issue. Ultimately, the Oklahoma Organic Act was passed in 1890, combining Oklahoma Territory and Indian Territory into a single entity, setting the stage for statehood. On November 16, 1907, Oklahoma officially became the 46th state in the United States. Every state has a unique story of how it entered the Union, but none were quite as explosive as Oklahoma. That said, Oklahoma's history isn't the only thing that makes it unique within the United States. But before we explore the geography of Oklahoma, if you're enjoying this video, hit that subscribe button. More fun geography videos are just a single click away. Oklahoma's geography is as diverse as its history, offering a unique blend of topographical features, climates, and natural resources that have shaped the human experience within its borders. Situated in the south-central region of the United States, Oklahoma is often considered a transition zone that blends characteristics of the Great Plains, the U.S. South, and the Southwest. The state is divided into several distinct geographic regions. In the west, you'll find the Great Plains, characterized by flat, expansive grasslands that stretch out as far as the eye can see. The area is known for its arid conditions, making it suitable for cattle ranching and wheat farming. On the other side, eastern Oklahoma features the Washita Mountains and Ozark Plateau, areas known for their lush forests and more humid climates. Here, the conditions are more suitable for timber and poultry farming. Between these two extremes, the state is crossed by several major rivers like the Arkansas and Red Rivers, which play an important role in the geography as well as economy of the state. These waterways have been vital for trade, transportation, and agriculture, allowing for the cultivation of crops like corn, soybeans, and cotton in the more fertile areas along their banks. Oklahoma is also home to a unique feature known as the Oklahoma Cross Timbers, a strip of land that stretches from southeastern Kansas through central Oklahoma and into northeastern Texas. The area is mostly made up of a mix of prairie, savanna, and woodland, and forms part of the boundary between the more heavily forested eastern part of the state and the almost treeless Great Plains. This area represents a natural barrier that once posed challenges to westward expansion, but is now valued for its biodiversity. Climate-wise, Oklahoma is situated in Tornado Alley, a region of the US known for frequent tornadoes, particularly in the spring and early summer. Tornado Alley has the highest amount of tornadoes of anywhere else in the world due to its unique location situated in between cold, dry air from the Rocky Mountains, hot, dry air from the Sonora Desert, and warm, humid air from the Gulf of Mexico. This unique location adds a touch of danger to an otherwise pretty safe state as far as natural disasters are concerned. Finally, natural resources are another significant aspect of Oklahoma's geography. The state has abundant reserves of oil and natural gas, making it a key player in the nation's energy sector. This has influenced the migration patterns, economy, and even politics of the state, as energy companies and workers have flocked to Oklahoma to capitalize on these resources. Despite these natural resources, however, Oklahoma has maintained as one of the lower population states. In fact, if we look to Texas in the south, both the Dallas and Houston metropolitan areas each have nearly twice as many people as the entire state of Oklahoma. Despite being neighbors, Oklahoma and Texas have striking differences in population, and there are several factors contributing to this discrepancy. The reasons range from historical events to economic opportunities and even geographical features. All of this combines to explain why more people choose to live within a single metro area in Texas than all of Oklahoma. Part of this explanation lies within the history of how Texas developed. Prior to being annexed by the United States, Texas was initially part of New Spain and then Mexico when it gained independence in 1821. However, the Mexican government struggled to attract settlers from its own country to the region. To solve this lack of population, Mexico began allowing American settlers, largely from the southern United States, to move in. This migration pattern led to tensions over cultural, political, and language differences, and ultimately played a role in Texas's fight for independence from Mexico. After winning the war in 1836, Texas became an independent republic for nearly a decade. When Texas joined the United States in 1845, its territory was enormous, extending all the way to present-day Wyoming. The state's vastness was partially a result of claims inherited from Spanish and Mexican rule, as well as its short stint as an independent republic eager to stake out as much territory as possible. However, the size was not entirely practical for a single state to manage, especially given the political complications of the era, such as the division between slave and free states. When Texas was annexed, it ceded some of its northern territory to the federal government, which later became parts of other states. Yet even after this, Texas remained the largest state in the Union until Alaska was admitted in 1959. But while Texas has had a much longer history of settlement and development than Oklahoma, it would be the discovery of oil in the early 1900s that would greatly influence Texas's growth, both in terms of population and economic power. Houston became a major global energy hub for the world, attracting a large, diverse workforce. Meanwhile, with the construction of railroads, Dallas became a business and trading center for the state and was booming by the end of the 1800s. It became an industrial city, attracting workers from Texas, the South, and the Midwest. Both of these cities led the charge to making Texas what it is today. By contrast, Oklahoma, in part due to its early history as Indian Territory, developed much later. And despite Oklahoma, and more specifically Tulsa, becoming a regional energy hub, Texas ended up as the home of almost all major American oil companies. ExxonMobil, Texaco, Phillips 66, ConocoPhillips, Plains GP Holdings, Halliburton, and many more companies are all headquartered in or near Houston. This left oil centers in Oklahoma with relatively smaller companies or satellite offices with less need for a large employment base. And of course, Texas's direct access to the Atlantic Ocean by way of the Gulf of Mexico helped Houston specifically become what it is today. Transporting oil and natural gas is largely a freight and logistics business, and in a globalized world, having a large port is almost a necessity. Oklahoma, of course, is well inland and, as such, simply can't have a large port to call its own. Today, Oklahoma is a growing state that's home to about 4 million Americans, and of those 4 million people, approximately 1.4 million are located in the Oklahoma City metro region. This would be followed by the Tulsa metro area with a further 1 million people. And that's kind of it for major cities. The rest of Oklahoma's population is spread out, mostly in the eastern half of the state. In fact, if we look over to the far west, also known as Oklahoma's Panhandle, a scant 30,000 people call this entire area home. Which begs the question, why does Oklahoma even own this weird strip of land in the first place? The curious shape of Oklahoma, including its panhandle, is not just a quirk of geography, but a result of historical, legal, and political decisions. Often overlooked, the story behind Oklahoma's panhandle and why it doesn't belong to Texas dates back to the 1800s when Texas joined the United States. In the early 1800s, the United States began to expand its territory westward. Texas, then part of Mexico, gained independence in 1836 and later joined the United States in 1845. When Texas became a state, its territory extended northward all the way to the 42nd parallel, which is near present-day Wyoming. However, its massive size posed problems, particularly when it came to the issue of slavery. The Missouri Compromise of 1820 had established a line at the 3630 parallel, above which slavery was prohibited in the newly acquired territories with the exception of Missouri. When Texas joined the Union, having been settled by Southerners, it was admitted as a slave state. But its large size meant that it included territory both above and below this crucial line. As the United States grappled with the issue of slavery leading up to the Civil War, this became a significant point of contention. As such, when Texas was annexed, one of the conditions for its statehood was that it would have to surrender its claims to territories north of the 3630 line. This territory was detached from Texas and became known as the Public Land Strip, later referred to as No Man's Land, because it was not under any formal territory or state jurisdiction. Over time, various territories and states were carved out of the land surrounding this strip, but the strip itself remained an unorganized territory. It wasn't until 1890 when Oklahoma Territory was organized that the western part of the present-day state of Oklahoma was defined. Oklahoma became a state in 1907, and the Panhandle was incorporated as part of the new state. Oklahoma doesn't have very many people as compared to Texas, but for most Oklahomans, that seems to be perfectly okay. In my experience with the state, most people who live there are happier having fewer people nearby and a slower pace of life than its southern neighbor, Texas. As such, I really wouldn't expect Oklahoma to grow rapidly anytime soon. I hope you enjoyed learning more about Oklahoma. If you did, please subscribe to my channel. If you want to listen to the podcast, you can do so here. And if you want to watch another episode, click here. Thanks for watching. See you next time.